Well, on this 15th day of May 2023, just hours after President William Ruto promised to crack the whip on the corruption at KEMSA, he has finally done it. We have that. Plus, tonight, President William Ruto has terminated the appointment of Health Principal Secretary Josephine Mburu. Additionally, he has also disbanded the entire board of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority KEMSA, including its chairperson Daniel Rono. Kenya and Somalia have agreed to reopen their common border after more than a decade.
By relooking at the visa procedures to make sure as much as possible we restore free movement of people.
Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki says as ties warm between the two neighbors. And tonight we turn our attention to the concerning misuse of social media platforms by young individuals.
Where it looks cool to walk naked. It looks cool to use an F word. And you find even a child using that on their parents, and it's on social media, it's on TikTok.
With the increasing prevalence of online platforms, some young men and women have been engaging in harmful activities that negatively impact their well-being and society as a whole. Good evening once more. My name is Eric Munene. Our sign language interpreter at the bottom end of your screen is Rhoda Nyamai. President William Ruto has sacked Dr. Josephine Mburu as the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Health. Ruto has also revoked the appointments of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority KEMSA board. This follows complaints alleging impropriety within KEMSA that affected the procurement of treated mosquito nets meant for vulnerable households. Sharon Baranga kickstarts this bulletin tonight.
It was a gloomy Monday for a number of high-profile officials in the Ministry of Health. Dr. Josephine Mburu has become the shortest-serving Principal Secretary after being fired by President William Ruto. The move came following complaints on the regular verification of expenditure by the Global Fund with regards to the National Malaria Program that targets millions of low-income Kenyan households. Others who have been shown the door are the chairperson and members of the Board of Directors of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, KEMSA.
That you don't think it is your business.
Meanwhile, Ruto has appointed Erongo Nyakera as the chairperson of KEMSA. Dr. Andrew Mutava has been appointed as the acting chief executive officer of KEMSA. Hesbon Oyeko Omolo, Bernard Kipkirui, Dr. Jane Masiga, and Jane Nyagaturi Mbatia will serve as board members.
I want to give you my commitment. I will clean up KEMSA. Whatever it takes,
Mr. President,
whatever it costs, I will clean it up.
The new changes at the Ministry of Health and KEMSA come as a result of complaints alleging impropriety within KEMSA that affected the procurement of treated mosquito nets meant for vulnerable households. Sharon Baranga, TV 47.
Now moving on, President William Ruto has nominated former Permanent Secretary Dr. Kamau Thuge for appointment as the Governor for Central Bank. If approved by Parliament, Thuge will take over from CBK Governor Dr. Patrick Njoroge, who retires in June. Dr. Thuge is currently an advisor at the head of fiscal and budget policy and a member of the President's Economic Council. He was instrumental in designing the current fiscal decentralization system under devolution. Scrap subsidies on key commodities even as the cost of living continues to rise. President William Ruto maintains the subsidy program is unsustainable and will not solve the current financial crisis facing the country. Chepto Boyd with that. Well, and I understand that story right there by Chepto Boyd is still being prepared. Move on. President William Ruto maintains that the 3% housing fund proposal is not a tax but a move to ensure more Kenyans live a life of dignity. Speaking to journalists during a roundtable interview, President Ruto maintained that Kenyans will feel the positive effects of the Finance Bill 2023 if passed in due time. Have a look.
As a heated debate on the overtaxation as proposed in Finance Bill 2023-2024 continues, President William Ruto insists that the proposals will have a positive impact in the long run. On the issue surrounding the proposed increase in the VAT on fuel, the president says this will close the loopholes that could lead to manipulation in the margins that mostly led to shortages in fuel.
Number one, because having differential rates, one at 8%, others at 16%, poses a problem, an integrity problem. People use it as a loophole to manipulate numbers.
Besides that, the president says the increase will lead to the collection of an additional 50 billion shillings, which will help in dealing with the roads across the country.
I have removed, on the same fuel, as we add 8%, I have removed road 3.5% road development levy from fuel. I have removed 2% of IDF on the same fuel. And to balance it out, because it is the same Kenyan who is going to pay from their pocket, I have removed VAT 8% on gas. And I have removed other taxes that I'm going to explain to you. About 10, actually 14 other taxes that I have removed to try and even so that we have a balanced budget.
On the contentious housing front, the president reiterated that the proposal to deduct 3% of all employees' basic pay will not only ensure the dignity of Kenyans living in slum areas, but also provide millions of much-needed jobs for the struggling youth. He says his plan is to build 200,000 houses per year for the next 5 years, which will take Kenya to the next level.
That's why I'm saying these 5 million characters, our children, getting out of school. Don't you think it is a decent thing? Don't you think it is the right thing to participate in an exercise that helps our country, our young people, instead of engaging in crime, in abuse of drugs, to be part, to get a job?
This comes even as employers across the country say the new proposals could lead to job losses since they simply cannot afford. Elsewhere, university students drawn from Kakamega County have threatened to join opposition in the nationwide protest following the leadership of President William Ruto, as they claim they are oppressing Kenyans with taxes. They criticize the Ruto administration for the high cost of living and excessive taxation imposed on Kenyans.
The way William Ruto is taxing Kenyans is alarming. You cannot come and start telling even the workers of this country who are our parents to come to be giving 3% of their salary for savings for their houses. Yet some of us, we don't live in a bush. We have houses at home. So our parents are confused between paying our school fees and saving for houses, something that we already have.
This, even as civil society groups slammed the government for the plan to reintroduce more taxes at a time when Kenyans are battling with the high cost of living.
Kuweza kujikimu kupata angalau hela, tena serikali imeangalia pia huko watakwenda kuchukua, kwenda kutoza ushuru. Hili ni jambo la kushangaza, kutamausha, kuudhi. Unapotaka kutoza ushuru ni lazima uhakikishe kwamba unaweka miundo msingi, unaweka nafasi na kuweka rasilimali za kuweza kusaidia watu kuweza kujinasua.
The Finance Bill 2023-2024 is set to be discussed in the National Assembly. Flora Limukie, TV 47.
Let's go back now to that story on the cost of living. The government will not reverse its decision to scrap subsidies on key commodities, even as the cost of living continues to rise. President William Ruto maintains that the subsidy program is unsustainable and will not solve the current financial crisis facing the country. Cheptoboi to that.
The Jubilee government had in its twilight days rolled out several subsidy programs to cushion Kenyans from the high cost of living, a system that President William Ruto says is not tenable and will only strain the finances further.
Wale majamaa walikuwa hapa mbele yetu. Walifanya subsidy ile inaitwa subsidizing consumption. Walipeleka pesa kwa mamila. Mila hana mahindi yake. Mila ni chuma tu wako nayo na mashini. Zile pesa ni mimi sasa ndio nalipa.
This is a signal that Kenyans will continue to pay more for common commodities as the government reorganizes its finances. Already, the cost of petroleum products has increased after the removal of a subsidy that was started 1 year ago.
We are going to live within our means. Even if we have to delay for salaries for 2-3 days, we will. So that people begin to internalize that we cannot continue borrowing. And let me tell you, I have had many people say, oh, you can't tax, there is no country that can tax itself into prosperity. That's correct, yeah? But you cannot accumulate debt into bankruptcy as an option.
The opposition has been urging the government to reintroduce the subsidies, arguing that Kenyans are facing hard times due to the high cost of living.
Our public debt is in the region of 8.8 trillion, close to 9 trillion. IMF actually wanted us to borrow slightly more. I told them no. I told them no, we're not borrowing. And that is why if you look at the fiscal deficit, the money we are borrowing, we have reduced it from 1.1 trillion last year to 630 billion this year. We have reduced almost 500 billion.
National Assembly Budget Committee Chairman Ndindi Nyoro on his part says the opposition is politicizing the 2023-2024 budget-making process, arguing that Parliament still has powers to amend punitive sections.
The finance bill, the budget estimates, these are not dictatorial booklets. They are not dictatorial documents. Anything that the Treasury brings to the National Assembly, it comes there because National Assembly is a house of debate. And as we debate the finance bill and the estimates, the budget, we listen to the Kenyan people.
We must agree that time is right. We stop squandering public resources. We utilize public resources for the right purpose.
However, this is what Kenyans have to say concerning the spike in commodity prices.
Lakini nyinyi watu ambao mko juu hamsikii uzito ambao sisi tunapitia. Sisi watu wa chini ndio tunaumia na sisi ndio mnatupandishia sukari.
Ungeomba loan kwa sababu ulipata ng'ombe kama ni mgonjwa. Utibu kwanza ng'ombe, alafu ndio uanze kujitegemea kuanzia hapo.
Mahindi kwa shamba sahi iko mzuri, inakuja mzuri, sio kama ile wakati ingine. So nafikiri kuanzia next year January mwezi wa pili karama itakuwa imerudi normal.
The cost of living is one of the main agendas being discussed by the bipartisan talks team appointed by President William Ruto and opposition chief Raila Odinga, and its recommendations on this specific topic will mean a lot to Kenyans. Chepto Boyd, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you for that, Chepto Boyd. Now, after being closed for a decade, the Kenyan government has announced plans to reopen its border with Somalia within the next 90 days. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki made this announcement following a meeting with his Somali counterpart Mohamed Ahmed Sheikh in Nairobi on Monday. Along with reopening 3 existing border points, Kenya is also considering the addition of a 4th border post in Wajir County. Moiga William brings us that detail.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki Monday played host to his Somalia counterpart, Internal Security Minister Mohamed Ahmed Sheikh, where high-level consultations took place. The outcome of the deliberations, which the Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale was part of, was to end the more than a decade-long closure of the Kenyan border following increased attacks by the Somali-based Al-Shabaab terror outfit. Interior Cabinet Secretary announcing that the government has resolved to reopen in phases the border points, an exercise which is to be undertaken within the next 90 days.
And we have resolved that the border between Kenya and Somalia will be reopened in a phased-out manner within the next 90 days, effective today, starting with the Mandera-Bulahawa border point.
The border points located in Garissa, Mandera and Lamu counties remained closed during former President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. Kindiki observing that the two countries will collaborate in enhancing border management.
The deliberations noted the need to enhance cooperation and partnership between our two brotherly neighboring countries, purpose to address the challenges to foster regional integration.
Though noting that Kenya and Somalia continue to experience both intra- and interstate security threats emanating from the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, with increased prevalence along the shared borders areas, Cabinet Secretary Kindiki highlighted that the government plans to add a fourth border post in Wajir County.
We are also in the process of relooking at a possibility of also adding a fourth border point, which will give an entry point into Somalia from the Kenyan side in Wajir County.
Also, the government of Kenya announced plans to ease visa restrictions to facilitate movement between the two countries.
We have been able to agree to review the arrangements in place to make it easier for our people to move a bit more freely.
Time frame of easing the visa measures so that the citizens of two countries can obtain easily and travel easily to their respective countries.
Kindiki affirmed that the government of Kenya will continue to engage with the federal government of Somalia to develop and implement joint approaches and strategies cutting across social, economic, and insecurity issues. Mwige William, TV 47.
In a tragic incident on Monday morning, 5 people lost their lives and 8 others sustained serious injuries when a 14-seater matatu they were traveling in collided with a bump, causing it to veer off the Nakuru-Eldoret Road at Sachangwan area and landed in a ditch. Chichi Josephine tells us more.
Barely a month after a fatal accident occurred at Sachangwan area, another accident occurred Monday morning at the same area, involving a 14-seater matatu that hit a bump and lost control, claiming 5 lives as 8 people were left injured.
Nilikuwa natoka Maraba kuelekea Nairobi. Nilikuwa nakuja polepole mzuri. Angekuwa nakimbia hata hakuna mwenye angetoka ndani. Sasa kufika hapo kuteremka breki ikakataa. Kukataa nikasikia niruka mabamba kamuuliza ni nini? Nilikuwa nakaa nyuma yake. Kaniambia ni breki.
Sasa kufika mahali penye sasa gari iliteremka ikaanguka, hapo ndio nilipoteza ufahamu. Juu nilijipata after masaa, sasa ndio nikapata polisi. Gari la kwanza imeenda na first lot na sisi ndio tulikuwa the second.
Confirming the incident, Molo Sub-County Police Commander Mwenda Mutamia said that this was a self-involved accident that took place at 2 a.m.
Hii ajali ilihusisha Nissan Shuttle aina ya Eldoret Shuttle na ilifanyika saa 8 ya usiku. Na hiyo gari ilianguka peke yake. Dereva alipojaribu kupanda runway ramp, labda jaribu kujiokoa kwa sababu tunaonelea labda alikuwa amelala ama kushtuka, alafu akaona achukue njia ya dharura kuokoa watu, lakini kwa bahati mbaya alipoingia ile ramp haikusaidia matatu, iliruka ikaenda ikaanguka pale hiyo nyingine na ikaua watu 5 papo hapo. Hao wengine karibu 6-7 wakaletwa hospitali hapa ya Molo.
Survivors are still receiving treatment at the Molo Sub-County Hospital, while the bodies of the deceased are at the hospital mortuary. The wreckage of the matatu was towed to Molo Police Station.
Most of them were soft tissue injuries. The child we are suspecting, she has a head injury. That's why we are referring her. We have 2 men have rib fractures, but they are stable.
The area has for a long time been considered as a black spot along the Nairobi-Nakuru-Eldoret Road, together with Ngata-Sobel-Salga stretch, Miga, Karai, Kinungi, Mbaruk, Gilgil and St. Mary's. Chichi Josephine, TV 47.
Now, after Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua vowed to flush out cartels in the tea, coffee and dairy industries, saying they are behind the wars farmers have been facing, the country is now looking to tap into the knowledge on coffee production and exportation from Colombia, as it eyes being a major player in the sector. And as Micah Gongo reports, the second-in-command earlier Monday signed several MOUs with the Colombian counterpart Francia Elena Marquez Mina and deliberated on ways of boosting trade relations between the two countries. Have a look.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Colombia Vice President have deliberated on ways of boosting trade relations between the two countries, including the introduction of direct chartered flights from Kenya to Colombia, which will be an enabler for trade and investment. Gachagua said the country is now looking to tap into the knowledge on coffee production and exportation to Colombia, as it eyes being a major player in the coffee sector.
With a huge delegation from the coffee subsector to learn from the people of Colombia on the success of the coffee subsector. Your Excellency, I have explained to you, the coffee subsector was very thriving in the 70s and 80s, but has gone down due to intervention by middlemen who have come in between the coffee producer and the consumer.
The second in command had committed to working with the Kenyan Parliament to comprehensively address the legislative, operational and other gaps in the coffee subsector. The two leaders also oversaw the signing of two memoranda of understanding that will enhance the working cooperation between Kenya and Colombia. That will center on boosting trade and investment, sharing best practices especially on economic models for transformation of the two countries' economies and cultural exchanges.
Our government is committed to further increase a two-way trade and investment cooperation between Kenya and Colombia by focusing on economic and commercial programs and promotion of business interactions between our two countries, ranging from MSME sector and the private sector and business management organizations.
And we are totally willing to join our efforts with you in the African continent.
Currently, the Kenya government is collaborating with the Colombian government in various sectors, including agriculture, environment conservation, science and technology, culture and education. Gachagua hosted the Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, Francia Elena Marquez Mina, for bilateral talks at the official current residence in Nairobi. Mike Kagwongo, TV 47, Nairobi.
President of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua and the...
Well, moving on, the family and followers of Jesus of Tongaren find themselves at a crossroad after their leader, Eliud Wekesa, was detained for 4 days starting from Friday. Speaking to our reporter Sustin Wanji, the followers expressed that their lives have been abruptly changed since his detention and that they are uncertain about what tomorrow holds as the case is set to be mentioned. Have a look.
Eliud Wekesa, also known as Jesus of Tongaren, will spend another day in the Bungoma police station cells as he awaits a decision on whether he will be granted bond tomorrow. The court has granted a 4-day investigation period regarding the radicalization claims and mental health status of the New Jerusalem church leader. This decision was made on Friday. At Ilhoho village in Tongaren constituency, the family and followers of Eliud Wekesa, led by Nabi Benjamin, who is the wife, expressed that their lives have changed since the arrest of their master, and she is now pleading with the President William Ruto to come to her rescue.
Na niko na kijana mwingine kule Kiambu, asa jana ananipikia simu ati mama, wamenifukuza kwa nyumba, landlord anataka rent na baba yake hayuko. Asa mimi nitafanyaje? Hata sasa sielewi venye mtoto wangu ako kule Kiambu. Kwa maana baba yake analipa 7,000, anamlipia rent. Na yeye mwenyewe huwa anapangaisha tu ili mtoto asome. Na wengine wanapelekanga vitina kwa serikali, wanasema watoto wa Yesu hawasomi.
On Sunday, the church service was unusual as Jesus wa Tongaren seat remained empty. The few followers who attended followed the normal procedures. According to them, the silence at the altar goes against God's will, but they remain optimistic about their master's potential freedom tomorrow.
Watamuweka huru na kazi ya Mungu itaenda mbele, kwa maana kila kitu ambacho kinatendeka haya ni mapito.
Yeye akiwa kuhani mkuu katika hii kanisa takatifu astahili akae nje wa huo muta mrefu, kwa sababu Biblia inakataza.
A section of Bungoma County leaders is demanding the release of Eli Wekesa on free bond, stating that he has not committed any wrongdoing. On the other hand, religious leaders have praised the government's crackdown on suspicious churches and are urging for a revision of church regulations in the country.
Ni mtu maskini kabisa. Ukimwekelea ya kwamba yeye anafanya money laundering, huyo Yesu hata shilingi 1,000 peke yake hana.
Hata tuko na baba wa Roma. Sasa namtira Yesu wa Tongareni. Simusike baba wa Roma. Muachilie vijana mara moja na makosa. Hakuna mambo ati Yesu wa Tongareni. Huyo ni mtu ambaye ni chukizo kwa community wa Bukusu na Bungoma County kwa ujumla.
Kama kuna makosa ambayo amefanya, sheria ichukue mkondo wake. Lakini sio kusema kwamba sasa sheria zingine zinatungwa.
Wanji Sostin, TV47, Bungoma.
Now, a lady from Murang'a town is crying for justice after she was allegedly viciously assaulted by a police officer who left her nursing serious facial injuries. The lady, Miriam Wairimu, says she was assaulted by the officer, who she says is an ex-boyfriend. Our reporter Mida Jacob with the details.
Miriam Wairimu, who reported the matter at Murang'a police station, was left with a bruised, swollen face, eyes and lips, and she has been forced to put on a headgear to cover her injuries.
Miriam Wairimu, na jana kuna huyu askari alikuja akanipiga, akaniambia kuna kitu anaweza fanyiwa. Akanipiga, alikuwa anataka beshte yangu akamkataa, akakuja akanipiga.
Well, we do apologize for airing that story there with a few technicalities. Well, moving on, the temporary camp of refugees from Burundi and the Republic of Congo at Kitale Showground is facing the outbreak of diseases caused by the severe cold environment. A large percentage of children have become victims, with one of them passing away last week. And as Isaac Famba reports, the government has been urged to expedite its efforts in assisting the more than 1,600 refugees who are currently suffering.
It is a temporary refugee camp at Kitale Showground. Despite being a temporary camp for the refugees, some of them have accepted the situation here and continued various activities to earn a living. The cold environment has posed a significant challenge, leading to the outbreak of diseases, particularly affecting children, as growing number of people seeking refuge in the area intensified the situation.
Na tatizo ni kulala mbaya. Tunalala watu karibu 500 kwa nyumba moja. Tunapangana kama nguruwe. Hii ndio inakuwa shida ambayo tumekuwa nao sana. Na maji tumekosa. Mtu anaweza vua nguo, anaweza oga, hiyo yote inashindikana, imekuwa tatizo.
Tumeweza kuhudhuria kwamba wengi wao wanaugua na magonjwa tunaita upper respiratory infection. Hayo ni magonjwa ambayo yanaletwa na infection ambayo ni kiini kinaingia kwa sehemu ya kupumua. Tumepata kama 2 watatu ambao walikuwa na pneumonia, na maanisha infection inaingia kwa sehemu ya mafua.
Consequently, calls have been made to the government and well-wishers to provide medical aid to address the urgent need, as lack of medicine and medical equipment remains a pressing concern that requires immediate attention.
The kids here are having a condition, they are sick, but we don't have medication. And I want to call on the well-wishers and any other person, anybody that feels that he or she can assist these people, because there are some medicines that we cannot get them from our dispensaries here. We need antibiotics, we need a number of medication that the doctors have just given us a list of the medicine that we need to buy. I know we will not be able to buy all the medicine. We can only purchase some of them, but it is of need for now to ensure that these kids have been given medication as early as now.
Accompanied by Trans Nzoia County MP Mrs. Lilian Sioi, Migori County MP Fatuma Mohammed emphasized the importance of finding a permanent solution to the refugee crisis in respective countries, as Ms. Mohammed further urged the East African community to step forward and address this pressing issue collectively.
Kile tumejionea hapa ni la kusikitisha mno. Na tukisema kweli, tunakilaumu East African community. Kwa nini hatuwezi tukasaidia hawa wenzetu? Kuwapa chakula, kuwapa malazi na pali pa kukimbilia sio suluhisho. Wala kutuma jeshi letu kutoka Kenya kwenda kwa nchi lingine sio suluhisho. Suluhisho wanajua kile wanapigania. Wakalishwe chini na majirani wao kama wakubwa kiundugu. Manake Kenya tuko juu kidogo kiundugu. Sisi ndio tulianzisha hii mambo ya East African Community. Kwa nini tusitafute amani la kudumu? Kwa nini tukubali wakimbizi wawe kwa nchi yetu? Tusaidie Kongo wapate kuishi kwa nchi yao.
Isaac Famba, TV47, Trans Nzoia County.
Well, at 30 minutes past the hour, time now for a very short break. Don't go away. We'll be back with more.
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki history.
Nikifika watu wangu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Nimeset the mood. Naweza kupokeleka. Nikitumai kwamba mzima popote pale ulipo, nikikukaribisha katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi. Jina langu Elizabeth.
Meli yetu itakapotua nanga kwa uhondo ribo ya riwaya hii Mwisho wa Kosa. Monica.
It's early morning in Maralal. Start your morning informed, educated, entertained, and above all, know your country. From the beautiful plains of Samburu County to the skyscrapers of Nairobi, Morning Cafe certainly got you covered. Indeed, a beautiful place to watch and certainly a moment of understanding and knowing your country. Indeed, to the remotest part of every county.
Join me, Linda Alela, every weekday from 6 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki history.
Nikifika watu wangu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Inafaidi jamii, strong as one. Strong as one. Usawa ni umoja.
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki history.
Nikifika watu wangu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Nimeset the mood. Naweza kupokeleka. Nikitumai kwamba mzima popote pale ulipo, nikikukaribisha katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi. Jina langu Elizabeth Mutuku. Katika kipindi
Premier Events Venue.
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki history.
Nikifika watu wangu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Nimeset the mood. Naweza kupokeleka. Nikitumai kwamba mzima popote pale ulipo, nikikukaribisha katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi. Jina langu Elizabeth Mutuku. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kutangamana nao kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea siku nyingine. Tutapatana papa hapa umjue kiongozi mwingine.
Jiunge nasi toka hapa ufuoni mwa bahari. Meli yetu itakapotua nanga kwa uhondo ribo ya riwaya hii Mwisho wa Kosa. Monica.
I know that meat looks tender, but
Wakati mwingine kama weekend, mimi najiachilia.
Hata ukumbuki hii story.
Nikifika watu wangu wakinipokea na kupokeleka.
Umeset the mood.
Nimeset the mood. Naweza kupokeleka. Nikitumai kwamba mzima popote pale ulipo, nikikukaribisha katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi. Jina langu Elizabeth Mutuku. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi
TV47, the home of untold stories.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. In recent years, Kenya has emerged as one of the top countries in Africa with a significant increase in internet users. The number of internet users has risen by over 1 million between 2021 and 2023. While the internet has undoubtedly made the world a global village, it comes with both advantages and disadvantages. In this piece by Moige William, we will focus on the disadvantages, specifically addressing a popular social media application called TikTok. Disturbingly, some users on TikTok engage in provocative behavior such as dancing half naked or even stripping naked during live sessions. Have a look.
Kenya has emerged as one of the notable consumers of the internet globally, with about 20% of its population actively using social media platforms. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and TikTok are some of the popular social media apps used by millions of registered users in the country.
Yes.
These platforms offers users the opportunity to interact, socialize and even transact business. Many renowned personalities, including influencers, brand promoters and brand ambassadors, have built successful career in this space. One of such personalities is Edward Kehara, popularly known as Only Lit Boy, a professional dancer who has leveraged his fame on TikTok to become a brand ambassador and make a fortune. Kehara is minting big money as a brand ambassador thanks to TikTok that introduced him to the world. With more than 2 million followers on the app with Chinese roots, and which is common among teenagers, he managed to cover niche in the entertainment industry and become successful in pushing products through his dancing career.
Sasa niko na only two platforms zenye ziko active, TikTok and Instagram. TikTok niko na 2 million followers, Instagram 143k. So shooting tu ndio tunaweza sema ni luck. Najua God akiamua ni leo ni leo. So tuseme aliamua hiyo na tukaendelea kucontinue hadi mahali tukafika.
His decent acts have earned him a reputation on the platform with over 18 million likes and several packs.
Really kitambo ilikuwa so easy because ulikuwa unaweza kuhesabu content creators, you know, sika sai like there are a lot of people. Unaona wenye wana dance. So like sai ukaza lala tu kidogo unaweza pitu. Unaona juu so many people na bado wengine wana grow. Unaweza wana kids wana dance to the old age people, unaona. Sasa zingine unapata shosho yako pale TikTok na dance unashangaa. Unashangaa unaona. So lakini tunafanya nini, ni biashara.
Nifungue kamera ndo nikuje nikidance. Guys, hebu tukue active.
However, a disturbing trend has emerged on these social media platforms where users share explicit content. Young people activate live sessions with music playing in the background and dance half naked, shamelessly exposing themselves to anyone who joins the session. Some even go to the extent of stripping naked, which by many standards is unacceptable. What is baffling is, unlike Kehara, who is using these platforms to advance his image and manage to attract more potential clients, for the ones sharing explicit content, one would wonder in exchange for what? Unless it is sharing explicit content and engaging in immorality under the guise of just here for fun.
The lives, like unaweza pata watu wanaingia, wana show the explicit, the bodies, wana twerk wengine, you see.
People are parading nudity on social media. There's even sex shaming that is ongoing. There are sex parties that are going on online, and people are not paying attention.
The Kenya Film Classification Board, a content regulatory body in the country, has warned Kenyans against hosting explicit live streams of adult shows on social media platforms, noting that some platforms have turned into digital brothels where nudity is served in blatant breach of the law.
Because like wanaume wanapenda kuona vitu kama hizo. So like watu wengi wanakuwa flooded Unaweza pata mtu, kuna mtu amefollowiwa juu ya body shape yake, si ati juu anaitwa this and this. Unaona?
And these things that are being normalized, the normalization of crime, the normalization of obscenity, the normalization of evil through content is what has led to this, where it looks cool to walk naked. It looks cool to use an F word. And you find even a child using that on their parents, and it's on social media, it's on TikTok, and it's paraded as a way of life.
Cyber psychologist David Mwepeng has called on African states to tackle the emerging issues in the internet world by coming up with specific laws and regulations to address cybercrime-related offenses. He emphasized that children are greatly exposed to these new trends and urgent measures are needed to protect them.
Big tech companies, right? They do as they please in Africa. They don't do as they please in Europe. Why? Because here, our regulations are very weak. Facebook can take data, Google can take data and use it as it pleases, but there's no action. So one of the things that we believe will really help us in Africa is if we do this collaboratively. African governments need to demand accountability from these big tech companies.
And some of these social media platforms have become free for all. There is no regulation, and they are destroying our children. We are allowing our children to be taken advantage of, to be misled. Some of them are being radicalized. Others are getting into depression because that content that they are consuming, nobody's guiding them. And the deeper they get, the more difficult it becomes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Guys, to go active.
The Kenya Film Classification Board has warned social media users sharing explicit content that it will monitor different platforms and collect evidence that will be forwarded to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation. It stressed that the distribution of obscene films is outlawed, and those streaming explicit sexual content on social media risk arrest and prosecution. However, the question remains, will this be enough to curb the alarming trend?
Lakini pia tusemeka tuko kwa zile end times. Like dunia tu sasa kila kitu ni weird. Unaona? Like sasa kila kitu ni free. Like kitambo nakumbuka ukiwa shule ukihug msichana vile ilikuwa ngumu hata mtu anaweza enda kukusema. Like say even it's not a big deal. Like world, tuseme tu world involved.
It is time to reflect on it, and I'm saying we must be radical. It cannot be at negotiation in the name of freedom of expression. We must say nothing is more important than life. Nothing is more important than our children. And let me conclude by saying there is no substitute for morality.
Recently, Australia has been subjecting these big tech companies to appear and justify, to appear before lawmakers and justify that which they are doing to protect children, to protect internet users. You rarely hear of that. In Africa, you will see internet shutdowns, you see this and that. But there's a way we can, manage the situation effectively as African governments by demanding accountability. It means a multi-stakeholder approach, demanding accountability from big tech companies in terms of the measures that they're putting in place to protect internet users.
Internet penetration continues to pick pace in the world, more so here in Kenya, with new numbers of internet users being recorded on a daily basis. But one question that lingers: who will protect the vulnerable, more so the children who at times are being exposed to dangerous content in different social media applications? Moige William, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Moige William, for that piece. Remember, you can catch that piece on our official YouTube page. Moving on, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi, the spouse of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, dedicated her time today to combating drug addiction in Mombasa, where drug-related activities have been prevalent. Accompanied by Mombasa woman rep Zamzam Mohammed, Pastor Dorcas visited drug dens in the Shimanzi area and interacted with addicts from various forms of substance abuse who reside there. During her visit, Pastor Dorcas promised to rehabilitate many of the addicts who have voluntarily expressed their willingness to undergo rehabilitation. The addicts in turn pledged to reform their ways once they undergo the rehabilitation process. The initiative aligns with the efforts of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who is also actively fighting drug abuse in the Mount Kenya region by cracking down on drug peddlers and disrupting the supply of illegal drugs in certain parts of the country.
The biggest problem we are having are the hard drugs, and therefore we are looking into ways of being able to go to them, try to speak to them and to bring them to the rehab and have an end-to-end solution where they come to the rehab, they go for training in the vocational training, and we try to see that those ones who go through that program will also be connected to jobs. Most of the problems that we had before is that people will come to a rehab, and then once they have finished, they just go back to their frustration and to what they used to do, and they relapse. That is why we are thinking of going further and seeing how we have an end-to-end solution for these people. Those ones who can be trained and they can become plumbers, they can become masons, and they can be able to be put in the new programs in the housing, especially the affordable housing. We try to connect them there. The others can be tooled, and they are given tools that they can be able to self-employ. We have